Jonas's dissertation, Retirement Timing, Social Stratification, and Comparative Study of Labor Market Exit and Age Norms in Western Europe.
Thanks. So I hope this works. I hope that works. Let's see. No. Okay. Here we go. It's an experiment. This. Yeah. So let me start by thinking. Oh yeah, I take this over here. Oh, the organizers for. So it's working, right? No. Can you help me? Oh yeah, like that. Okay. The organizers for this. For the invitation to this smoothly organized workshop and for taking such great care of us in these days.
So nice to us.
Thanks a lot. So yes, I will talk about research that was actually part of this dissertation, and it's on the topic of retirement timing and social stratification, particularly on the effects of class and gender on retirement behavior in Western Europe. So, yes, obviously the background, I think we've already talked a lot about these issues, is demographic change and the universally perceived need to adjust pension systems and labor market institutions to this to the new situation. And obviously for 2010 the European Union had set this ambitious goal of pushing the employment rate among the 55 to 64 year olds to 50%, and yet it fell short of this aim, as I show you here for the EU 27. This rate was 46.3 in 2010, and as you can also see, the main gap comes from women's low participation rate in this age bracket. If we look at effective or average retirement age, the gender gap is actually smaller, and this is something that has a technical but I think important explanation. That is that not all of the women actually become eligible for retirement, so to say. As we look at retirement as withdrawal from the labor market after age 50, those persons that have not been in the labor market beyond that age are actually do not count and do not come into our view when we look at retirement proper. So here, when we deal with women, we deal with a selected group. In some countries more, in others less, and this explains the smaller gender gap when we look at retirement behavior as compared to gross participation rates. So the policy strategy that has been adopted to deal with this challenge of increasing the retirement age has been mostly based on incentivizing economically a later exit from the workforce through increased pensionable ages. We've seen a lot already on that, and linked to that, and this is where the savings come actually about through the actuarial adjustments that are then made in the bonus-malus system according to these new reference ages that in many countries are now at 67, and this is probably where it's headed in the rest of the OECD world as well. And so critics have raised the question if this may actually pose a challenge of new social risks. So as we punish people for drawing their old age pension at an earlier age, does this lead to increased old age poverty again in a way that we have not been used to for quite some time? And so if we try to analyze this linkage between retirement timing and social stratification, one sees there's not that much research actually on this link. No? I mean, there's things on old age poverty as such, but not on retirement behavior proper. And I believe this is due to a fundamental ambiguity that is really hard to say from an analysis standpoint. Is early retirement a good or a bad thing? Is it a privilege for somebody to be out of the labor force at an early age because he has a lot of free time, etc., can enjoy life, spend time with the grandchildren? Or is it actually an exclusion from gainful employment that also enhances identities and so forth? So obviously this is a question that is very hard to answer in such a global manner, and it really links to the theoretical controversy that we have in the field. Roughly speaking, between those that emphasize the pull factors and those that say that push factors are more important in determining the timing of retirement. So the pull factors basically refers to economic incentives. It treats the retirement decision as a deliberate choice of the worker, and so this is the way that economists tend to look at this issue, and very rightfully point to pretty compelling evidence that yes, higher early exit incentives in public and other old age income schemes lead to early retirement. Whereas in this other way of thinking about retirement behavior, it's often a forced decision or an involuntary exit that occurs for many workers. So if they are the victims of age discrimination, so they become dismissed although they didn't want, they cannot find a new job, or more seriously, they have health issues that directly impair them from being active in the labor market. I think both of these approaches have a legitimate basis, but yet neither of them by itself is capable of explaining the variance that we find. But it's not as easy as to say, okay, so then both are right, because at the micro level they really depart from very opposed assumptions. So whereas the pull approach says people would want to exit as early as possible, people want leisure, and work is painful and the burden, so they want to get rid of it. The push approaches say no, people are they actually want to stay on work because it's part of their identity, etc. So I think it's not as easy that we can just say, okay, so we just use both approaches. Although obviously we need both ingredients, but I would say and make the case that we should probably take a step back and let's not search for the global retirement model, but we would probably need to go more specifically into different social groups and say, so for which social groups are labor market constraints, health factors, etc., more important, and for which groups is it more the incentives that count? And when we talk about constraints, I think it's important to talk about social class and gender. And both of these factors arguably also play a role when it comes to retirement preferences. So yeah, in short, I would propose to analyze these things with a life course stratification approach. And the data that I will use is again the share data for the 50+ population in Western Europe. I only use the first wave because I have this emphasis on social class, and there are no ISCO codes for the occupational for the occupations of the respondents in the second or third wave. Unfortunately, this was abandoned, and they only asked for the first level, basically for the major groups, which is actually a useless variable. So we have these 11 countries, as in the previous paper, and the retirement concept, as I said, is one of exit from the labor market rather than entering the pension system. This is always important to have in mind, and it's based on the subjective employment status categorization and excludes homemakers or people who have never done any paid work. And I analyze retirement behavior using a event history analysis approach, a semi-parametric hazard model, particularly this piecewise constant exponential model that is usually applied in this context. So the risk of exiting the labor force starts at age 50, and then we trace people as they approach retirement. So obviously this is done now here using cross-sectional data, but exploiting some of the retrospective information that is available in Share. For instance, like the last job, etc. So the sample, I did a cohort restriction to limit some of the period effects that might play a role otherwise, and wind up with a sample of 10,000 subjects, 2/3 of which I already observe a retirement event, and the rest is censored. This is a list of independent variables. Most importantly, social class and gender. Class I measure using the European socioeconomic classification. It's a rather new class scheme that is a further development of the Ericsson-Goldthorpe schema developed by the research teams at ICER in Essex and the Walter Müller team in Mannheim and other institutions. And yes, so my paper is one of the few that actually also looks at the number of grandchildren as one of the control variables in this case, and a series of other controls that you see here. So in terms of hypotheses, when we think about the relationship between class and retirement behavior, it's a whole set of factors that we would want to take into account. I believe the employment risks, so the risk of being involuntarily of being shed from the job, is the most important one. We could also want to look at old age income levels, and ideally at subjective differences in terms of retirement preferences. So to summarize, I would expect the service class to exit the labor market rather late, as well the self-employed, and those that should exit the labor market earliest is the skilled manual workers, even earlier than the routine occupations, the lowest level in the occupational strata, because these, as we already said a couple of times today, have a strong incentive to work longer years just because they do not have a sufficient old age pension at an earlier stage. So if they are not, if they don't become disabled or do not see another option, they are likely to continue working. So let me show you the results of this hazard model. Just to remind you, these are hazard ratios, so numbers greater than 1 means earlier exit, and smaller than 1 means later exit than the reference category. All right. So the first model just includes class and marital status and the grandchildren. Then in the second one, I introduce other job-related characteristics, and in the third and fourth, a series of interaction effects between class and gender. So yes, we see that pooling all these European countries together, but controlling for the country effects. Indeed, the higher salaried exits the labor market significantly later than routine occupations, and basically the groups that exit the labor market earliest are these routine occupations together with the skilled manual workers and intermediate occupations, which is typically administrative clerks and lower technicians. To summarize, we also find, maybe surprisingly, for the lower sales and service workers, also a pretty high propensity to exit the labor market early. But some of these effects can be explained by the different job characteristics in the second model. Consistently, the self-employed are those that exit the labor market latest. This is so whatever you control for in every country, in every study, in every data. So this is it's not so surprising, because these are people that usually have very autonomous work schedules, so they can fit in. They also often chose the work they are doing, and on the other hand, they have sometimes constrained access to public pension benefits, often only when reaching age 65, if at all. So all factors here really would speak in favor of late exit, and this is as we see it. Also, obviously they are their own bosses, so they're not easy to be dismissed. And then, so I would not want to spend too much time on the control variables. As you see in the third and fourth model, I have these interactions, and these are always very difficult to interpret, only having such a table, because you would need to multiply all that with the main effects. So I have this little graph here, which summarizes the class gender interactions. So again, we have the hazard ratio here on the x-axis, and towards the right is early exit, and towards the left is later exit. And so basically these are the same effects that we saw in the first specification, and there are no significant class gender interactions. So as the conventional approach of class analysis would posit, class matters. And genders matters insofar as there are different class compositions between the genders, but once controlling for social class, it doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman at this level of the analysis. So in order to get a bit closer to what is happening here and to tease out the social mechanisms, I propose this competing risks framework to analyzing retirement transitions. And I use a question in share on the reason for retirement that is asked to people, to retirees. And so this is a subjective question, and so respondents are given a whole list of, I think, 10 items that they can mention as reasons for their retirement. They can also have multiple answers, although this is uncommon. And then I categorize these into these three types. So involuntary early exit refers to people that retired because they were made redundant or because they became long-term ill or disabled. Conventional retirement, as I label it, are only those respondents who said they retired because they reached normal retirement age. We will now see it's not only age 65, but they reached. That's the reason they give. So it's not so straightforward what to make of that. There may be lack of financial leeway to retire early, or just a compliance to the kind of the social norm at the normal age where you retire. And then as a third type, voluntary early exit, which refers to reasons such as I want to enjoy life, I want to spend more time with the family, I was offered an attractive early exit plan. So with this distinction, I hope to get closer to the reasons behind the class and gender effects that we observe. So first here, this is just the survival curves for the retirees according to this typology, and we can see that obviously involuntary early exit is the lowest of these curves. So this is exit transitions that occur typically in the 50s, because people become unemployed or disabled. This is not so likely to happen once you're already over the 60, let's say, threshold where then these other transition modalities play a greater role. And conventional retirement, as we say, a large part of it takes place at age 60 or 65, which is the normal statutory pension ages in most of these Western European countries. And the voluntary, kind of significantly, is in between. So it's not like people who say they exited for leisure reasons or so. These are not those that retire earliest, because before age 60 is actually not that many people that say, and now I really want to enjoy life. This is rather at an earlier, at the medium age. So these are the results for the competing risks model, and here we see that so actually a huge share of the class disparities that we see in the aggregate model is driven by the class differences in involuntary early exit. So the class graded employment risks in the late career are majorly responsible for instance, the big difference that we observe between the service class and the working class. As I said, the conventional retirement is a bit difficult to interpret, but let me stress that in the voluntary retirement, we do not actually see a significant difference between the high service class, so the managers and the higher civil servants, for instance, and the routine workers. So under these circumstances, although this is not this is not a strictly counterfactual evaluation of what they would do in these different situations. I think it does tell us a bit about the fact that the rather late exit of the service class is not really driven by their preference for late retirement in itself, but it's more by their being sheltered of employment risks that often cause the early retirement of the working class. Yeah, here and also in the previous model, we also find this recurrent finding of spousal retirement effects. So if your spouse is already retired, you are also more likely to retire yourself. This is an established finding in the literature that there's a preference for joint retirement, at least among many couples. Yes, and here the same story again for the interaction effects for this last transition modality, that is the voluntary early exit. This is the only one where we actually see some significant class gender interactions. In the others, it's not the case. And here, actually, the only one where there's a real significant difference between the genders within one social class is between the routine male and routine female workers, but a bit the other way around as one would think. So female routine workers actually retire later if it is for voluntary reasons than routine male workers, who are the reference category here again. And then a quick excursion to the macro level. So now, having established that social class has a big effect on retirement behavior, I wanted to see, is it actually that the different class structures that we can observe in different countries explain a share of the variance that we find in effective retirement ages? So I calculated these pretty simple simulations that just basically change the class composition between countries, holding constant the class-specific retirement behavior that we observe in each of those countries. And so I do this for 3 reference countries, Germany, Sweden, and Spain. And yeah, these are just descriptive of the class structure of elderly workers in share, using this class scheme. And so we see obviously the German case is one where among developed OECD countries we have a relatively high share of skilled manual workers, and relatively low development of the service sector, specifically in comparison with Sweden, where we see it's 24% among older men that are in the higher salariat, and then 20% in the lower salariat. So this is really a country in which tertiarization has gone very far. And then Spain is an interesting case because it has this huge share of self-employed, which is typical for the Mediterranean countries. And then for women, there are actually larger differences. 3, okay. And yeah, so here we see, for instance, in Spain, the share of women in these service class occupations is very marginal. Yeah, so these are the results of that little simulation exercise. On the left-hand side for men, you see the gray bars are the actual observed retirement ages, and then these different plots are the simulated retirement ages if the class structure were as in the scenario case. So, for instance, this triangle is the retirement age that we would likely observe in these different countries if they had the same class structure as Germany. And we see it doesn't help to have the class structure of Germany. So, for instance, well, in Greece, obviously, the retirement age would be more than a year lower. In Spain, it would be significantly lower. On the other hand, having the Spanish class structure among men would enhance retirement ages for the Dutch people, and even for the Swiss, who have the highest retirement age of all. and this is due, as I said, to the large share of self-employed, maybe. Then among women, there are even larger effects. Again, so Greece is an outlier case because it has this huge share of self-employed, especially among the older population. So Greece would not be well advised to now shift to a more usual occupational structure, as we see as the retirement age would plummet. Yeah, so we can conclude from that. There are some effects in terms of class composition, but most countries are actually not that much affected, mostly because the class differences are not that huge in a great part of continental Europe within. So yeah, if I want to conclude, I would say, so we have strong class effects in general, and these are in great part, although not exclusively, attributable to push factors. And then we have some gender-graded class effects in terms of retirement decisions proper, that is involuntary early exit decisions, but no significant differences between men and women within classes when it comes to, most importantly, retirement opportunities, that is labor market constraints. There, really, it's class what matters, and not gender on top of that. And then the impact of class structure is limited, although important for some countries. Yeah, so thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Glad this worked out.